Will discuss the environmental situation in Agareb and the waste management and environmental issues in Agareb and Borj Chekir. We will discuss waste management in Tunisia, and this webinar is organized by the Arab Reform Initiative, which is a regional initiative and a studies center that focuses on social justice, environmental issues, economic issues, social and societal problems in the Arab region. Today, we have the representative of Arab Reform Initiative in Tunisia, Mr. Boussen, and we will have Lara Salman, who is also a researcher in political science, and she has written a article that was published by on the website of the initiative. In this report, Lana draws a comparison between waste management in Tunisia between the different municipalities. We will talk about that in depth. We will take a few minutes to wait for Sami Bahri, the second participant from Agareb. He is also an activist in Agareb. In addition to Nidal Tui, and he also he has long advocated for the waste management, and he also one of the main leaders and activists of the social movement in that area. Sami Bahri is with us. Welcome, Sami. Now we give the floor to Lana, and after that, we'll give the floor to Sami. Go ahead, Lana, the floor is yours. Good evening, everyone in Tunisia who are participating with us in this webinar. My name is Lana Salman. I'm also a researcher in local development issues. And now I'm also a researcher at Harvard University. Last year, in December, Zied and I were working and were and we were working in the municipalities of Mamura and the other municipalities to better understand the problem of waste management, but that they were not the same tensions. But in the study that we produced after this research, we noticed that there was a grave problem that will explode at any moment, and that happened. The problem exacerbated, and hopefully today we can discuss in depth the problem and the details of this problem and the role of municipalities in and the management of these environmental issues. Thank you, Lana. Sami, can you please give us a brief introduction? Yes, welcome all. My name is Sami Bahri. When it comes to the protests that we started in Agareb, I'm a citizen from Agareb, out of 45,000 residents. I'm an artist, I'm also an intellectual, and I'm the son of this region. We were advocating to stop this pollution, to stop this treatment and the lack of treatment of the waste management in Agareb. So we started a social and a local movement. We were not an organization, we were not an association. We were like a movement. Thank you, Sami. We'll go back to you, Sami. Perhaps some of our participants are not aware of the situation or what happened in this region related to waste management in Agareb. So this is a logistical there are some logistical details, and you can click on interpretation on the globe. Interpretation is provided in English and Arabic, so you can click on the globe and choose the language. So in Agareb, the situation is the following. There was a landfill that was started in 2008 it was a temporary landfill. However, a decision was taken in 2016. A decision was not respected, and in 2020, we saw that the landfill was reopened after the waste problem and issue in Sfax province. This landfill the judicial decision was taken and issued to close the landfill. However, the decision was not respected, and the landfill had grave environmental and health hazards in the Sfax region. Some of the impact of the waste in the region were grave on the health of the citizens and locals. Sami, can you please give us a brief description of the situation in Agareb today, on the effect and impact of this landfill on the children, on women, on the local residents, and if the situation improved in the previous month or not? Thank you, Ziad. I just wanted to introduce you to the region where I live, which is Agareb. Agareb is a region of Sfax. It has around 45,000 residents. Agareb before 2018 or even 2010, they used to say that Agareb is a paradise with a beautiful nature, with the greenery, with the green sceneries and landscapes. Afterwards, we discovered as of 2016 that we had a large number of cases of disabilities, of large and increasing number of death and mortality. So what happened there? Why were we noticing this large and increasing number of disabilities? What was happening in this rural area where this region that used to have a beautiful nature, where the residents used to be able to live off nature? What happened there? And in 2008, the landfill was opened. They called it the landfill for residential waste. This landfill was started in Agareb, and in 2018, the landfill was situated in a reservation, in a natural area. So this and in taking this second decision, the authorities did not take into consideration the decision of the local municipality, whether they want to have this landfill or not in this particular area, even though this region was under the authority of the local municipality. So this landfill was opened to manage the waste of Agareb and Sfax. The landfill had or was to be functional for 5 years. However, this period was not respected. In 2013, after we had this transitional period in Tunisia, as of that time, we started being active. And then we noticed the severity of this problem. We said that this is a natural protected area, that this landfill should not be operational. We have to take care of the nature in Agareb, and we cannot have a landfill in the midst of this protected natural area. And we started our activities back then. What happened after that in 2013, we said that the landfill was illegal, its operations were illegal, and those who also conducted a study of the situation noticed that the problem was severe and grave. And we had around 70% of people who had some secondary effects and were impacted by the landfill in forms of disabilities. We had large percentage of mortality of children and also of young people with disabilities. We had people aged and individuals of 30 years old dying. So we noticed and we discovered the extent of the tragedy in the region. And we were the air we were breathing was also sickening. We were also scenting this odor of waste. We can no longer feel the nature that we were supposed to be surrounded with. And at the same time, demands were started to visit and actually understand the impact of this landfill. And we discovered that this landfill was not a landfill of residential waste, but we had all types of waste. These violations were grave, and we could notice by the smell that the type of waste that was treated there was not residential. In 2018, the landfill was supposed to be closed. In 2018, the Agareb landfill was not closed. 10 years after opening it, the landfill was not closed, even though it was in the middle of a protected natural area. And we have heard that the decisions are centralized and that decisions are not taken at the provincial or in this rural area. And after that, we started a movement, a social movement that monitored these environmental violations and disparities in Agareb. This landfill had to be closed. It used to be also in this landfill we had the waste of olive seeds, and Lunas also was one of the major issues in this landfill. This landfill was in the middle of 8 kilometers of protected natural landscapes. And also in Agareb, we had a number of factories, of industries, factories of, and we also had slaughterhouses. And some of the chicken farms were also throwing the waste, the feathers, the remains of poultry in the landfill. And we started sending emails and discovering the extent of the environmental tragedy that was underway. We noticed that the land and the air were polluted. In Agareb, we also have lakes. We have natural lakes. And we noticed also that the water of these lakes were polluted. In Agareb, we have one of the largest industrial areas in the country, and all of these factories were getting rid of their waste in this landfill, and they were also polluting underground water reserves. In 2018, we noticed the extent of the problem, and we noticed that we are at a crossroad. We either strive for the better or and for the future of our young generation, or we have to wait. So we started the study and we noticed that 90% of our children had the sight problems. And a number of doctors used to contact us. What is the problem? We try to find scientific uh, answer. We had a number of doctors contacting us to see why we had this large number of people with medical problems. Why do we have a large number of people with physical and medical issues? So, well, let us talk about how the first movement was started, how you monitor the situation, how the movement was established. I was just trying to explain and simplify the situation to the participants and to talk about the problems and actually mention the problems that we try to solve in our movement. So a number of problems that we noticed in Agareb was the reason why we started the movement and we created a group on Facebook. In addition to a number of protests in the region in Agareb, the majority of us were artists. And we started these activities in the theater and this on the street in a number, and we produced a number of movies. We went to schools to actually shed light on the severity of the problem. We started advocating to and for the closure of the landfill. We showed how people were being impacted. We started a protest wearing masks. So we started to raise awareness in this rural area, and since we were in this rural area, it was not easy to raise awareness. We had to move. How could we do that? We had to move forward. We started organizing concerts, other events in Agareb to shed light on what was happening in Agareb. In 2018, we discovered a lot. We discovered that this landfill was not just for residential waste, but for all types of medical high hazard waste that was being thrown in this landfill. All organs, human organs, human remnants were thrown and sent to this landfill. All medical waste was being thrown in the landfill. Anything you could expect or think of was being sent to this landfill. We also discovered that some of this waste was very dangerous. In Sfax, we noticed that they were being paid, the landfill was being paid to accept some of the waste. So this landfill was also part of and was also impacting the health of the residents. What whatever you might think of was being thrown in this landfill, and also they utilized and monetized some of the waste. We also noticed that we also noticed all of these different problems, and we started to raise the voice. They threatened us. They wanted us to shut up. They wanted us to keep silent and also to ignore the problem. So we took the decision that we have to raise our voice, that we have to protest. We are not decision makers. The majority of us, 90% of us, are artists, and we had to express ourselves. We had to raise our voice. So what we did finally, we hosted a competition for the Miss Safakis. We tried to express in various ways. We tried to express in art to shed light on the environmental issues. Afterwards, we decided that we have to go to the court. We have to take the problem to the court. We noticed that we were facing people who were stronger than we were. We went to the court. We said that this is an emergency, and we asked the court to issue a decision to permanently close the landfill and also to treat all forms of pollution in 6 months, in a period of 6 months. But we did not, and we had to get this court decision. However, they actually went further, and actually they opposed the court ruling. We had one girl who was preparing her wedding, and unfortunately, she died. We discovered in the autopsy and in the medical reports that were issued afterwards and the lab reports, we noticed and we discovered that she died because of a bacteria. And we took this autopsy and the medical report, and we discovered that this bacteria was caused by the spread and the existence of this waste, even though that this bacteria has not been seen since 1858. However, we have this bacteria in Agareb in our day and time. So we discovered also another case of a person who had cancer, and this cancer was caused by the widespread pollution. We have been seeing all of these patients, these people who are dying because of this pollution, of these violations committed against our local environment, because of the waste that was being gathered in this landfill. And that is because we did not understand the environment. We were all artists, we were activists, and we did not understand the severity of the problem, and we lost a large number of casualties. So we wanted for the government entity to treat pollution, to come and also monitor the quality of air and water. They did not actually publish the report. We had to ask the court to ask them to publish the report, and the report was shocking. The report revealed that Agareb was highly polluted and actually exceeded the known levels. We were actually breathing polluted air that had hazardous effect on residents' health. So, in a medical way, we noticed that the residents were suffocating, they were dying because they were not breathing uh, a clean oxygen, they were breathing gases that had grave impact on their health. They were being massacred by this pollution. Out of 10 residents in Agareb, 9 were about to die from cancer. So science actually proved our point and showed that this landfill was actually killing the residents of Agareb because of the medical waste that was being thrown there. So we had to take action. We went to the court and we put the municipality in front of its responsibilities. We asked the municipal council to issue a decision of to close the landfill, and the municipal council issued a decision for the closure of the landfill, for the immediate closure of the landfill. In addition to that, the municipal council issued a decision to actually treat all forms of pollution. Now that was the result of the activities of Lunas, this company that polluted ancient historic archaeological Roman sites. So these Roman sites were polluted by Lunas in a region of 8 kilometers. This region was polluted, which also led to the spread of reptiles, of spiders, and all of these weird reptiles. We had cobras, we had a number of reptiles and snakes. We heard of cases where people were laying down and they were bitten by cobras. So our environment was out of balance. There was a problem. There was a violation of natural order. Sami, let us move to another part, another point, and we also have to remind our participants that you can send your questions in the Q&A section to be answered by our participants. And now we will move to Lana. Sama, you reminded us that you went to the municipality. We have Lana Salman. You have met with Lana in your field work. Lana wrote an article that was published on the Arab Reform Initiative's website on political policies of waste management. This article was the fruit of joint work between the Arab Reform Initiative and the Tunisian Association, Lana, based on the brief description of the Tunisian colleague. What can you tell us about Agareb? When we started the field research, one of The conclusions that we reached was the following: that the waste management is an issue that required the participation at many levels. The role of municipalities was clear because usually when we have waste management, when waste is thrown on the streets, when the nature is polluted, this shows that the municipalities are not playing their role. However, the problem of waste management, of the management of solid waste, is multi-layered. Perhaps municipalities is the first level of a long chain, because municipalities are in charge of gathering waste and transporting them to a transitional or a transitional center where waste is being uh, gathered and sent to a landfill that should be monitored and under surveillance, like Lana, like Borj Chekir in Tunisia and in Tunis. The association or the entity in charge of actually overseeing this activity is UNJED, which is the National Agency of Waste Management. So after the municipalities, it is the responsibility of this government entity to oversee the transportation to the landfill, and also UNJED is in charge of the circulation of transporting the waste and of ensuring that these landfills are not polluting, that waste is being managed, and that the gas was also being treated. There was waste management projects financed by the World Bank to extract this gas to be transformed into energy and to be sold as carbon credits. So all of that project was not implemented. All of these policies were put aside, and the management of the landfill was also uh, did not take place. We are talking about a landfill that should be under the surveillance and the monitoring of the national agency of waste management, which is called UNJED. UNJED also had some rumors and was accused of corruption. Its books and records were not audited. Amjad was not audited, and till now we do not have a clear audit of the books of Amjad, though, about its funds, where the funds were used, and all its environmental projects. Amjad had another project which was called EcoLeft, which was one with the highest number of accusations of corruption. I usually try to avoid the use of corruption or the word corruption as concept or as a principle or as a concept, because when we use the word corruption, we try to explain corruption with corruption. When our study, we try to understand the incentives or the perverse incentives, the incentives that in some cases, or these contradictory incentives to understand corruption. Sami talked about waste, the waste that would be sent to the landfill. This waste could have had food components, and this food elements are being taken out of the landfill. There are people in Agareb who are benefiting from recycling, if we might say so, this reuse or recycling or reuse of this food and reselling these food products in Agareb to the local residents. These are the perverse incentives. When we start talking about this type of dynamics, the question of corruption becomes multi-layered and more complex because the people, the local residents who are those impacted by the landfill are actually calling to keep the landfill open because they have this incentive because they were monetizing the waste. This landfill and the local residents are exploiting some aspects of this landfill. This system is exploiting the local residents and providing them with these incentives. Also, the municipalities have a role to play. Municipalities have a small role to play because the municipalities do not control the landfill. Landfills are out of municipalities' control. In Agareb, the problem is that the landfill is located on municipal territories. However, the ownership of the landfill goes to the agency for the management of forests. And the territory is also controlled by the agency for the management of local forests. So there are a number of levels, a number of layers in terms of responsibility. When we say that some people have incentives, they have interest, we have to say that there are a number of agencies, a number of entities that control or share the blame or share the responsibility. And it becomes difficult to determine and identify what the municipalities could do. We talked to the municipality in Agareb. Today I was reading the report and the municipality told us that they were supporting our movement because this movement was for the benefit, was for the rights of the people of Agareb, and we were calling for to respect their rights. 1 year prior to this movement and before the protesters were shunned, I reread in the report that the municipality of Agareb was actually proud of the fact that the right of the protesters was respected and that the municipality allowed the protester to go on and that they actually tried to negotiate with the local residents who were protesting. But this year, and because the situation exacerbated, the municipality could not control the situation, and one of the protesters died actually. Actually, he was murdered. He was killed by the oppressive forces that try to control these protests. So when we start talking about all of these different issues, we have to notice that the municipality, and we have to identify the fact that the municipality could not put an end to the oppressive response. So we cannot blame the municipality for the oppressive response. This is not the responsibility of the municipality in Tunisia. In brief, I believe waste management is not only limited to a distribution of toxicity. Injustice, and there is this sort of injustice and unequal distribution of waste. All Tunisians are producing waste. However, we have to think about the location of this waste or where this waste will be treated. The distribution of waste will lead or is leading to this injustice. When we think about the management, we have to think about toxicity and how this waste is being distributed. This is a political decision. This is not a technical decision, even if the parameters of the decision, the components of the decision could be technical. However, the decision itself is political. When we were talking to the municipality, I remember some of the details. Some of the reasons that were given could not be accepted wholeheartedly. When we were discussing with the municipality of Agareb, I was with you, Ziad. I don't know if you remember. One of the members in the municipal council, we asked him why was the landfill located in Agareb. The response was that the soil in Agareb did not absorb this waste liquid. So he gave a this answer that he thought was scientific, and he actually tried to justify the allocation of the landfill with this pseudo scientific answer, even though it is hard to believe that the local soil did not absorb this waste liquid. When we have this problem of unequal distribution of waste, we could end up with a number of political and technical issues. But at the end of time, but at the end, they we try to evade answering the question who is actually benefiting from the location and from the waste management in this way. There is a number of industries and the factories. Who are they? Who are the owners of these factories? Who are people benefiting from this landfill and from the polluting management of waste? Who are the municipalities surrounding the region of Agareb, who are the residents in Sfax in this province, how they are benefiting and benefiting from the situation. They are benefiting by sending all of their waste to Agareb, to this marginalized region, this politically marginalized region. These residents of Agareb who do not enjoy the same rights as the residents in the other regions in Sfax. So in Agareb, it is okay for the local population to endure this pollution. And the movement that happened in Mahras when they took the decision to close the landfill and move it to another region, there was a movement in Mahras, and the local population actually protested. They did not want to have the landfill in their own territory. Of course, the local population protested and actually did not approve that their own land would be used as a landfill. So it is a political issue. Where do we distribute this waste? Who will be the victim of this toxicity that we produce in mass? So this is the political issue. This is the political question that should be solved. And to solve it, there is a number of parameters. First, we have to identify who owns the land. How does the state pay those who have land surrounding the landfill? Because the state has to buy the land, has to reimburse the owners of the land. And if the state wants to establish a landfill in its own territory, we cannot prevent the state from doing so. But we have to understand how the people who own land surrounding this landfill are affected. There should be a policy that revisits the means of consuming and how we consume in a way that produces this waste. Consumerism is the responsibility of uh, society at large, of factories that are producing these products on Zied and its recycling initiatives. But at the core of the problem, we have to rethink of this consumerism and this unsustainable consumerism. We cannot carry on and continue with this pattern of consumerism because every couple of years we have to open a new landfill. We have to find another location for a new landfill. This is not the solution. We have to rethink, revisit this chain of waste management, to think of every single phase of it, and also to rethink this consumerist system that destroyed our nature, destroyed our environment, and the local communities that are surrounding and living in this region. I do not, I Ziad, you might remember that one of the conclusions in our study that the concept of the municipalities of the environment is disembodied, that the environment is something that exists outside of the local community, outside of the safety of the local community. The idea that the environment is not disembodied, it's not a separate component, would allow us to think of sustainable solutions. Because whenever we think that the problem is separate and on a whole, on a different dimension, and this will lead the response to be fragmented. But when we think that the problem is part of our everyday life, when we think that the problem is actually hindering our safety, that it is a part of the hazard, of the medical hazards, of the medical problems that we are suffering from. This will allow us to think of how we are managing this waste. How can we ensure a greater justice in providing safe management of this waste? The answers that were given to us by the municipality were actually summarized in an excellent manner. Thank you so much. In the Sfax municipality, there was this institutional policies that should be taken in order to solve the waste management problem. Sami, I have read that in the past few months, the past few years, awareness increased from the part of the local municipality and the government in Tunis. Do you think that local authorities are now more aware of the environmental problem and of the solutions that should be implemented in Agareb today? As I told you, Ziad, the problem in Tunisia is a problem between the central government and the marginalized peripheral regions. In these rural regions, we have people who actually want just to put their bread on the table. They believe that sickness is sent by God. So the problem in our movement was that we were trying to be more scientific. We had to set a plan. We had to understand the problem. What was the problem? What was the problem faced by the residents of Agareb? So we prepared a plan, an economic plan that introduced and explained the situation and the reasons for the increasing levels of mortality. In addition, this increasing level of mortality led us to talk to the municipality, to talk to the local government, to also talk to the national government. We had a number of promises since 2013 from the Tunisian government that they will solve the problem this year and that year, etc. The last deal that we concluded was in 2019 with a number of ministers. So we had a disagreement between the residents in Agareb with the province, the Ministry of Environment, the government, etc. And they asked us for 1 year that they will ensure the closure of the landfill in 1 year to find the solution. So we gave them 1 year and a half. We gave them 1 year and a half to solve the problem and close the landfill. So in 1 year and a half, they did not implement any solution. We noticed that the situation was as it was 1 year and a half earlier, but even exacerbated. We had we had a problem of trust, and Al Nahda government also did not take any further measures. Our movement was not targeting a given party or a given entity or institution. We just want to live. We had these demands, but we were actually accused by the left and by other parties that our activity was directed against one particular entity. And we had this crisis of trust with the government. The government did not implement the solutions they announced. They did not implement their solutions. Their, the agreement that we had with the government uh, actually was that the landfill will be closed by 2021. However, the landfill was not. Amjad also issued a report that the landfill reached its maximum capacity levels. So we actually moved on and actually called for the immediate closure of the landfill. However, this did not happen. They added another area, a new area to extend and expand the landfill. What did we do then? We tried to close the landfill. We did not allow the entry of additional waste because the landfill reached its maximum capacity. We did not allow the entry to any of the trucks, but we discovered that other trucks were being allowed entry, and all of that is documented. We could send you all of the evidence, all of the details and documents that we have. Sami, in the past few weeks and months, we noticed that this problem of waste in Agareb happened again in a number of locations in the country. We have seen Borj Chekir in Tunisia. Personally, the movement of Agareb, did you have any sort of cooperation with other activists, with any movements that were calling for the closure of Borj Chekir landfill? Were you cooperating, were you coordinating with these activists? Yes, the movement to close the landfill in Borj Chekir are our friends, and we would like to thank our brothers, our activists who stood by us, who supported us. And also, we would like to thank the media outlets who supported our activities and some of these media programs who shed light on the tragedy of what was happening in Agar. The problem is a lack of trust. We do not trust the local authorities and the policies to manage the waste, in addition to the lobbies, to the gangs that are dealing, that are actually handling waste management in Tunisia. People are looking for solutions for the waste management, and some of the people who were supposed to solve the problem are part of the problem. These people could not implement a solution to this problem. The new government, we have a new Minister of Environment. We sat with her and we heard from her that there was no way of solving the waste management unless with the support and the cooperation with the local population in Agareb. we had a decision from the municipality to close the landfill, a court decision to close the landfill, and also the people was calling for the closure of the landfill. So the Minister of Environment has said that there was no way to close the landfill, and the landfill will not be closed, but with the support and the supervision of the people of Agareb. However, we were surprised by this unjustified violence to which our people in Agareb was subjected to, in addition to the interference of foreign parties. And we felt that the waste was more important than our own human lives. All that we called for, all that we wanted was a safe nature, safe environment, a safe air to breathe because we love to live. So we were surprised by these oppressive actions that led us to lose the martyr Abdullah Razak, who lost his life due to this aggressive reaction and oppressive actions because he called for end of pollution in Agareb. And in addition to the environmental issue, we noticed this sort of lack of justice in Agareb. And till today, we are still negotiating. We still have our hands and we are still ready to negotiate. If the Constitution guarantees our rights for a safe environment, and we are still there, even though we are the victims, we are still ready and we are still welcome cooperation and negotiation still now. We are waiting to study the proposal of the government. So we talk to the government. We have to tell them, come to Agareb and live with us for a few hours and see this catastrophe that we are suffering from. Sami, the proposal of the government, can you give us tell us some of the points or the nature of the proposal of the government? The last proposal that we received from the government was that the landfill will be open for 14 days. They'll try to solve the problem in 14 days, in exchange of which they will try to provide us with other services, with a theater. They do not talk about the development. We want to live. We want to be alive. We want to be alive. I do not want development. I want clean oxygen, clean air to breathe. We have nothing in Agareb. We have no hospital in Agareb. We have no equipped hospital to deal with medical cases. We have no university. We have no government services, nothing. They lured us with the promise of development, but we want to live. We want a free and a clean air. One of the proposals of the previous proposal that they will cover waste with and try to solve the smell of the waste, but not the waste itself. Lana, we will go back to you. what or the solutions are limited. You gave us an example of the solutions, which is to rethink the consumerist model and the consumerism that produces a large level of waste. Agareb, or the landfill of Agareb, has more than 600 tons, or welcomes more than 600 tons of waste per day, which could be solved by reducing consumerism. So, what could be also the solution that could be implemented by the government or the local authorities, the local government, to reduce and solve this level of the problem and to ensure a better response to the problem, especially since, as Sami has said, the local population wants the right to live, the right to breathe healthy air, and did not really bother for development. Allow me first to focus on the model of consumerism, and especially since changing the model of consumerism cannot be an initiative of the citizen, because people will not rethink their model of consumerism, but would require a government issued policies, government policies that would impose some sort of measures for instance, these measures could target manufacturers, how they package their products. For instance, Tunisia is a country that is rich with water resources, but also there is a market for selling water bottles, these bottles that will end up in the landfill. We could also provide water access to water to all of Tunisian citizens. That will reduce the level and the number of plastic bottles. This will require government policies. In terms of more technical response, we have to think about UNJAD, the government entity in charge of waste management, and we have to seriously consider opening its books, reviewing its books, accounts, understand uh, the funds that enter its books and how these funds were employed and used and exploited throughout the years to ensure a level of transparency and to understand how this entity was utilizing and exploiting these funds in managing waste. In addition to that, municipalities, and by virtue of the law that is not being implemented, which is the code of local collectivities or local communities, that we do not know how they this law would be implemented in the future. According to this law, municipalities could impose and levy a tax on polluters, on industrial polluters who are active on municipal territories. So municipalities could impose a number of taxes on industrial polluters, but the municipalities cannot control the landfills. Agareb, for instance, could deal with their factories. Of course, municipalities should implement this law, especially, and since the municipalities are not independent as the law states, they will not do that, and the municipalities will not impose a tax on these factories, because these factories could actually blackmail the municipality and tell the municipal council that if you impose this tax, or the factory will close its doors and move its activities to another municipality. So this is a sort of a blackmail. They blackmail you. You have to accept, if you want the development in your region, you have to accept this polluting landfill and distributing a factory. And there is no justice in this case, and they do not respect the local population's political agency. So we have to think and we have to rethink the activities of the official government entity for waste management. We have to give more space and more authority and prerogative to the municipalities to activate and implement this law. We have to also start to think about recycling, about waste management, and to have a clear strategy. When we visited Al Maamura, the municipality had its own recycling initiative with CSOs, with civil society organizations. They had their own initiative to recycle, to divide the waste in several categories. However, all of this waste was sent to the landfill and put together. When we ask the question about, when we ask the municipality this question about what would happen to this waste, they said that a small portion of it was recycled. However, the rest was sent to the landfill because there was no national initiative or no national policy to ensure a better recycling. We need a national policy, multi-leveled policy that is adopted all over the national territory. However, we should not focus on creating a new landfills because as long as we are producing waste, we will always need to create a new landfills. The same goes to the question of traffic. Whenever we create or we expand the road, we will have new cars, additional cars, and that will lead to new traffic, and we will need to add another lane. So this is a never-ending cycle. The same goes for waste. If we open another landfill, the landfill will soon fill and reach its maximum capacity, and we will have to find another landfill. We have to think of a holistic approach. We cannot treat just one aspect of the problem separately from the problem itself.
شكرا لنا. سامي،
Thank you
كنت
so
أود
much,
أن
Lana.
تنطرح
Sami,
من طرف
there was a question that
السيد
was asked
الرئيس
by
البرلماني
one of our participants. Is there any case for reparations for the people of Agareb for the way their lives has been have been affected and to actually pay them or ensure them reparations for the damage they suffered from? There are a number of cases of people who died in their houses. We had the one person who died in front of us in his own house, and they said that he died or succumbed to his own illness. But in fact, his illness was due to this bacteria that is produced by the waste in the landfill. There is no family in Agareb that that does not have a family member who did not die from cancer. Every single family in Agareb has someone who has a cancer or died from cancer. Agareb used to be a paradise, used to be a green landscape of natural and of nature and a beautiful scenery. However, unfortunately, today it is the land of slow death and a rising percentage of mortality. Today, if you want to go to Agarb, you have to prepare for your death. You have to prepare your own funeral. Today, when we go to Agareb, we can actually smell the toxins. We can smell this pollution. What reparations? We want to live. We do not want the reparations. We want to live. We love to live. We wanted to live in our region, in our country. What can we do with our reparations if we are dead? What use are these reparations to us if we are dead? Or is it a sort of a blackmail? Accept this pollution and you will enjoy government services. The majority of us are sick. Those who do not have cancer are or have some sort of deformities. Those who do not have deformities have some sort of disabilities. We are all sick. Our future is slipping between our fingers. Our young men and women suffer from side problems. We are dying. We are having these medical problems, diverse forms of medical problems. The victims are many. People are dying. What is the value of a human life in Agareb? Is this a value? Can this value be monetized?
التسقيط هذا سامي يعني مؤسف برشا ممكن
This is unfortunate, Sami. This will be the final question. What could be your future movement, the future steps taken by your movement and by the citizens?
عمليه شنو تتوقع
What could be the future endeavors of your movement? What do you expect to occur and happen in the coming weeks and months? The government should find a solution for Agareb. Agareb suffered for 14 a month of all forms of pollution. I told you we had the biggest landfill emerging in the world. We had 8 kilometers of human body waste. We have a natural or a protected natural land that was turned into a landfill. We had factories that throw their waste in the lakes. We have polluted lakes and the water resources. The state should proclaim and announce that Agareb is an affected, impacted, destroyed region. We discussed, we negotiated with all of the national governments to ensure our right to live. We worked with civil society organizations. We tried everything. However, the government did not allow us to enjoy any of our rights. I'm a citizen of Agareb. History will judge me harshly for inactivity. What can I do? What more can we do? After 14 years of activity, after 14 years of smelling and actually breathing these pollutants, our end will be dire. Our young men and women, our children are dying of all sorts of cancer. Young girls, young boys are dying due to the bite of a cobra. We have chocolate bars that are being sold in schools that are polluted. This waste is is polluting our water resources.
واضح.
Consequences are dire, Zied. Our demand is simple. We are not calling for the accountability of any or to hold anyone accountable. We just want to live health and
سامي
preserve our health.
نوجه لك نفس السؤال اخيرا
Thank you, Sami. Lana, the same question.
يعني درست الموضوع
Since you have studied this topic and you actually conducted your own research in Borj
وفما فقط
Chekir,
معلومه انه في الورقه تاعك اللي تم نشرها في
in
ابريل
the paper that was
2024
published in April
البابر يعطيكم نص
2021
بان
on the Arab Reform Initiative's website, you
التصحيح
predicted
حتى في عقارب باللي
that
يعملوا التقرير الميداني تاعك
this will happen in
يثبت
Agareb,
بتواتر
and you
الخطر
actually
درجه الخطوره الموجوده
talked
في
about the
سوريا
tensions, about
نبدا
the
معك
hazardous
بسوريا
effect and
ما
also the dire situation
الأوضاع في
in
حلب.
Agareb.
اليوم
So
شنو
today,
يعني ترى
I have to ask you,
باش يصير في الأسابيع والأشهر القادمة
what
في عقارب،
are your
وشنو
impressions?
هو
What
المخطط
will happen in
المستقبلي؟
Agareb in the coming weeks and months? It is difficult actually to predict what's going to happen in the coming weeks and the month, especially given the political instability in the country as a whole. I'm not in Tunisia at the moment. I'm not on the ground to understand how the people are acting and what they are thinking today. If the local population want to protest and want to ask for their rights, I'm not sure about the initiatives that they might call for and the oppression and oppressive response they might meet. I believe that the problem is entrenched. It is the problem has exacerbated throughout the years, and this accumulation of layers of uh, problems will lead to societal explosion at the end. And in every case, when we try to deal with this, with the problem of this complexity, this requires a multi-layered approach. When we talked about reparations, and this is an important question because once the landfill is closed, this pollution will still impact the surrounding local population for a long period of time. However, we can start from this point of closing the landfill, especially since there was a court decision to close it. But we have also to think about the discourse. It is difficult for us now to think of how the government, how the authority, how this government that actually adopts laws violates the same articles of the law. Today, there is a court decision to close the landfill. There are protests to close the landfill. However, the landfill is still operational. It is difficult to understand the situation, and perhaps Sami could better give us a better understanding of how the people could deal with the situation. The protest or any sort of a protest or movement should lead to a networking. You asked Sami about the relation of cooperation and coordination between his movement and the movement to close the Borj Chekir uh, landfill. So this sort of networking should be consolidated. All of these societal movements should network and cooperate to coordinate the pressure they exert on the government. They together perhaps could come to a mutual understanding, to some sort of a common ground, to create a greater source of pressure on the government. This is perhaps most, the starkest form of injustice. We have to politicize the problem. We have to talk about this distribution of waste, to this lack of justice and distributing waste. There is no justice in us producing waste at the level of the country, but one region would suffer the consequences of dealing with this waste. These marginalized regions that will suffer the consequences of managing waste. We should not limit ourselves or just talk about the technical issues. We have to take care of the technical issues and for these technical problems to be the foundation of our political solution. However, we have to think, we have to have a political approach in dealing with this problem as a problem of injustice and to demand a political solution to have that encompass the technical issues. So the political solution should be the principal approach. Thank you, Lana.
التشات في علاقه بنقطه كنت ذكرتها انت
In
قبل
the chat, they one of the
اللي
participants noticed that
التحديث في علاقه
in
بالبلاستيك
Tunisia there's a need to rethink
رغم نفهم
the
ممكن
use of plastic products and
البلاغ
plastic containers. Before we
والطبيعه
conclude,
التفكير
we have to
والفكر
note
بشكل يتطلب
the need
المراحل المتعدده
to
يعني
rethink
بالتالي
our
لازم
approach
نركز اللوبي
and
ضد
also
البلاستيك
to rethink the work and actions
المستقبل
of plastic lobbies.
تأتي
The
في
last question,
في علاقة
what
بالمسؤولية
about the
آه،
responsibility of
التحليل في
private
الحقيقة
contractors such as
في
Sigor and Ecote?
ما نعرفش شكون من سامي ولا لانا يحب
Sami and Lana, who would like to answer the question?
يجاوب على السؤال يعني شنو علاقة ولا شنو مسؤولية المتدخلين
What
الآخرين
is the responsibility of private
في
contractors such as Zigor and
إدارة المشكل
Ikoti
هذا
in solving the problem?
تفضل
Would
سامي
you like me to answer the question? Go ahead, Sami. Sigor and Ikoti are one of the main actors in the situation. Sigor is the contractor and the landfill. They wanted to amass large sums and large profits. And also there are hidden actors, hidden powers that control Sigur and Ekoti and Amjad. We have discovered, unfortunately, that we are facing lobbies, we are facing gangs and criminal gangs. Ekoti or Sigur, they are the parties who are exploiting this landfill. They are using the landfill, and we know them by name. This is what led Amjad to file a lawsuit against Sigur. The problem is that we gave them the presidency. We worked with the presidency, with the prime minister office, with the committee to combat corruption, and we actually identify the main violations they have committed. We have a file that in which we have compiled all of these violations. The problem in Agareb is an existential problem. Agareb, 45,000 residents, all of them called and demanded for the closure of this landfill. We are as good as dead. In addition to that, we were subjected to this oppression, to a police state. We have to implement the law. The implement should be closed. The landfill is illegal. It has been illegal since 2013. The landfill should be closed. We have signed a number of international treaties to protect natural locations and landscapes. We have to close it. The municipality issued a decision to close the landfill. Why did they not implement it? We have a number of international treaties to which we have ratified, and the government asked us for 1 year to solve the problem. We gave them 1 year and a half. What did they do at this period of time? Nothing. We have a crisis of trust. Our crisis is not an environmental crisis. It is an existential crisis. It is a problem of, it is a crisis of existence. We want to live.
لاني داير راقد بحزب سياسي، لاني داير راقد بجمعيه، لاني حد شيء جاي خرجتك
I'm
تقول
not
لي
part of a political
دقيقه.
party. I'm not. I
ولا
want
شنو
to
ولا
live. I
شنو
want you
landfill؟
just to
واش راكم
implement
تقولوا لي البوزيشن
the articles of the
تقولوا لي
Constitution on the state, by virtue of the Constitution, guarantees every citizen a
دستور
safe and healthy environment. Let them respect the
شكرا
Constitution. Thank you, Sami. Thank you,
تفضل
Lana.
محمد
Thank you
تفضل
all. I would like to thank all of the participants, panelists,
فهمت
and all of those
يعني
who took part in this
المشكل
interesting discussion. We conclude that the problem is very complex, it is complicated. It is no longer a mere environmental problem, but it is a multi-layered, multi-dimensional crisis. And in the coming weeks and a month, we await a final decision. This requires a strategy and to rethink the environmental strategy of the Tunisian Republic. In addition to what Lana mentioned, to rethink the consumerist model and to start by the producers, manufacturers, the industrials, to the government, the Tunisian government, Tunisian entities, as who should play the role of arbiters. Thank you so much for taking interest in this topic. I would wish you all luck, Sami, for your movement, for your activities, and hopefully, God willing, you will achieve the results that you seek. Thank you so much for taking part in this webinar organized by the Arab Reform Initiative, and hopefully we will meet you soon. Thank you so much. Goodbye.